We already talked about this part of this question for the most part, if you want to expand on it. Why did your friends and musicians you have in your band, what led you to choose them specifically to be in your band? You have a pretty good chemistry going from what we've talked about in the past. But they all have different roles in the band, just like you do. So what actually made you choose these guys and made you think they're the actual members of Turning Virtue and just not fill-ins compared to your first reincarnation of the band in the 90s? Because you need guys like we talked about before we shot this that need to stay in the band, show up. You need guys that are dedicated to being artists and not just, oh, we're going to show up whenever we want to. What made you choose these guys specifically to be in your band for the long run?
You know, when we first started it and we got back to writing music, I had always been writing, even when I took some time away. DPA and I actually took 6 years away from each other. We took a hiatus. I figured we'd get back, but we were so tired from playing year after year after year and banging away at the original music idea. We weren't cover band guys. That's not what we do, man. We create original music, always have. So when DPA and I got back together, I told him, I said, man, I'm a little different than I was 6 years ago. I'm writing a lot of different kinds of songs. I think I have a different raison d'etre, if you will, a reason for being, a reason for living. My ideas are different. They're not what they were. So him and I, when we got back together that first time, we talked for hours. And then he came back, and we talked for hours. We didn't do any music, really. I'd pick up my acoustic, play a little bit, we'd bounce some things around, but we weren't about writing the album really at that point. We were just about finding each other again and saying, hey man, what can we do this time that's a little different than the last time we were together? And it was pretty amazing. So again, that's why did I choose DPA or DPA choose me? Well, that goes without saying. Everything that I've laid out, spelled out, is always why him and I have remained tight and together. But the rest of the guys, thinking it was a project to begin with, we were just thinking about, hey, let's get this album done. We didn't even know if we were going to keep it going and play. But then once the album came out and we really were happy with the way it was a no-brainer to get out and start performing it live. So Carl, I'd known Carl for all these years, and when I asked him to play on the record, I knew he would do a phenomenal job. So when you got a guy like that who cares so much about the music, it's so easy to have him on stage with you because you look over and you know he's always going to be doing his job and he's into it. And then obviously, again, we go back to Rob and say, well, we needed a drummer who can actually sit down and play the Zonder stuff and play it note for note. We asked him to duplicate it exactly, which is fantastic. You know how hard that is? A lot of guys won't even want to do it. You know, first of all, they might be intimidated by the idea that Zonder wrote these parts, or they might just say like, hey, I got to put my own spin on it. And Rob wasn't like that. I'm not saying that Rob wouldn't want to put his own spin on it necessarily, but he was open to the idea of saying, hey man, these tunes work this way. Why would I want to change something that works so perfectly?
It's like out of respect for him, you know, you had such a heck of a drummer that originally recorded those parts. You might want to put your own take on it, but in the end, he's such a great drummer. You want to keep it that way because, you know, guys come into bands that with pre-recorded parts like Rob did from Zonder. He created those parts, kind of like what happened with Dream Theater with Portnoy and Mike Mangini. Those parts were already written and recorded a certain way they were, so you want to come in and play those parts the same they were, and if you want to change them around a little bit live, you can, but for the most part, you want to stick to that method because they were written a certain way to flow with the music in a certain way.
I totally agree because that's what makes the songs, right?
Yeah.
You start messing about too much, and what do you have then? You have it basically becomes a poor cover sometimes.
Yeah, pretty much. So what do you think, my friend? Lucky Charms or Fruit Loops?
I would say Lucky Charms.
Hell yeah, man. I love them both. It's sugar, so what's the difference in the end, man?
Sugar cereals. Are you kidding me? So I'm going to step one back then. If we're going Lucky Charms or Fruit Loops, you got to give me one more option because I'm an Apple Jacks guy.
Apple Jacks? That wasn't even in the question. Stop giving yourself choices.
Apple Jacks. I loved
Apple
Apple
Jacks.
Jacks when I was a kid.